When it comes to knife design, there's always a specific design that seems to impress a lot of people. I am, of course, talking about integral knives. Have you ever heard knife channels start talking about integral knives in hushed tones? And for the life of you, you just want to know why they're so impressed? How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And if you've ever had that thought, if you've ever wondered what's the big deal, let me know in the comments section down below. Or if you found out afterwards and then you were impressed, also let me know. While you're down there, if you could go ahead, dap up that like button, I would greatly appreciate it. And it lets YouTube know that you enjoy knife content. So if that's you, smack the like button. Today we're talking about the WE Synergy 2, a integral design knife from WE Knife Company sent my way by DNK Knives. Shout out to DNK Knives, by the way. Little side story, DNK Knives, they saw a video I did a couple weeks ago where I was just trying to fix my computer. And so I did a Memorial Day knife sale. And I don't necessarily like selling knives, but it's a necessity sometimes when you're trying to raise funds, especially when you're trying to raise funds for the channel. And he saw that and he reached out and he said, hey, I'd like to help out, which is amazing. There's so many retailers and manufacturers and designers that, yeah, they might send you something to review, but they never take the extra step. And DNK Knives, he had no reason to. He sent me a knife for the channel. He said, sell it, give it away, whatever. I just hope that it helps. And that's fantastic. So, DNK Knives will permanently be in my description. They have a great selection, guys. So if you like this knife, or maybe you want to check out some of their other knives, definitely check them out, because the retailers, the business people, the designers that support the community, not because they feel like they have to, but because they want to, those are the ones that we should support. So with that being said, let's check out the WE Synergy 2. Let's go. This is the WE Synergy 2, the 912A model. And this is not a brand new design. This design has been out for a hot minute. And right now, these are actually hard to find, believe it or not. Many retailers are sold out of these, but you know where they're not sold out. If you decide that you want one of these, you can, in fact, still pick at least one up at dnkknives.com. I will link them in the comment and in the description down below. It's not an affiliate link, it's just a link. So if you want to pick one up, that's where you can find it. Now, let's talk first and foremost about some specs. This is an integral design. We're looking at titanium frame lock with a replaceable steel lock bar insert. It's got a titanium pocket clip with this crazy pocket clip design that flows in and out of the pocket with ease. It's a trailing point blade made of M390. We're looking at about 8 1/4 inches overall, with about 3.5 inch blade, 3 1/4 inch on the cutting edge. And it's a beautiful knife. Something that you might not have known is that the original Synergy, designed by Jim O. Young, was the first ever 3D modeled knife ever made. It was designed with CAD software, first ever. And then he got together with WE and said, hey, let's do this thing. And here we are. I didn't talk about a backspacer because this is an integral. That means that this was machined out of a single billet of titanium. Now, I did mention at the beginning of the video that I'd tell you why that's actually impressive. Not only are you working with an extremely tough material, you also have much less room for error. Your tolerances must be perfect. And so it's very common when these knives are being made with integral handles that they mess up. A lot of pieces get thrown away. If it doesn't pass muster, there you go, you're done. You can't repurpose it after that. It's done. And that's expensive. So that means that this has to be made to the highest standard, to the highest quality levels, before it can make its way into your hands. This knife is impressive for more than just that reason. If you look closely, you'll notice that there's some depth because it's not flat. This knife has swells and swoops in the handle scale, which contour perfectly to the hand. The fact that it's an integral means that you don't have to worry about a backspacer or about crap in your pockets dinging up the edge of that blade. It's going to stay nice and protected. It also has a certain aesthetic as well as a certain ambiance when you go ahead and pop that flipper tab. So let's do that. Man, the detent is nice. This knife was not born with a weak detent. It was, however, born with a single-sided captive pivot as well as a floating bearing system. Now, if you're wondering about how they got that in there, if you look closely, you see that little bit of discoloration next to the pivot screw? Yeah, that is actually a different piece of metal that fits in so seamlessly that it looks like a part of it. You cannot tell where the machine line is on there or where the seam is unless you look really, really closely. And that's just a sign of a really well-made piece. I'm very impressed by that. Now, this knife is flipper-only deployment, which is totally fine because it feels so good to flip open. I'm really enjoying the blade shape. I love the fact that this is a trailing point, and it's actually quite slicey. Very slicey. In fact, let's go ahead. I've got a manual here that I don't care about. So let's... I should probably clean that up. So as you can see, it has no issue slicing through things. A very clean grind on that edge bevel, and it looks and feels phenomenal. I will say this, that is not the best looking pocket clip ever. It's kind of spoon shaped and it goes down into that little, almost like a ball bearing style pocket clip, but it's not quite a ball bearing pocket clip. What it does do is flow in and out of the pocket without ripping up your jeans, which I do appreciate. If you notice the machining lines though there, that's very intentional and it adds grip, but it also makes it harder to see things like snail trails on the handle scales. We do have a T8 pivot and the screw right there and the screw right there, which are the only screws on this knife. They're also T8. Taking this knife apart would be one of those pointless endeavors because what's there to take apart? It's one piece minus the pocket clip and, the bearings. So really what you're left with is a solid design that was hard to make, that was hard to complete. And that's fantastic. The marvel of engineering a knife handle out of a single piece of billet titanium is really, really impressive to me. Now you might be wondering how much this knife weighs. It's not terribly much, actually. It's about 4¼ ounces. So when I weighed it, it came in at about 4.27, which isn't bad. It's not quite an ounce an inch on the blade to handle ratio or the blade to weight ratio, whatever you want to call it. But it's good. And it's a full-size knife. The ergos fit great. Now, it doesn't have finger cutouts on the handle scales, but it does have these swells. And it's going to put your hand in a perfect saber grip position. And a reverse grip works really well. Jimping right up here for your thumb, jimping right there for your index finger. Perfect controlled position. Something that I complain about all the time is the lack of jimping on knives, and I'm talking usually about the traditional jimping that you find on the spine of the blades. And while this one doesn't have jimping on the spine of the blade, it does have it right here at the back of the handle scales, which is phenomenal. It means that they're telling you, hey, you should probably put your fingers here. This is where we expect people to put their fingers. And of course, that's not necessarily a finger cutout, but you could in fact trigger pull it for a more up close and personal style of grip. Talking about the grind, the plunge grind is far enough away from that back edge where if you were to sharpen this, you wouldn't necessarily run into smiles right there on the sharpening choil, which I think is pretty cool. I really enjoy the fact that this knife was built to be used. It was built to be handled. And you could tell because they took the extra painstaking procedures to make sure that you had extra grip wherever you're going to find purchase on this knife. That's fantastic. The ergos on here are killer. And even if this pocket clip isn't the most attractive thing ever, it serves its job well. And when you're holding it, you don't notice it. It disappears, which is perfect. If you're going to have a lapse in design somewhere, I'd prefer it to be on the pocket clip because that's the one piece that really needs to function well all the time, because when you use it, you're, pulling it in and out of your pocket. And the fact that it's smooth and it's not going to tear up your jeans is just a nice added bonus. Now, some of you might be thinking M390, man, we've heard so much about M390. What about M390? Well, I feel like it's my job to educate people and let you know exactly what's good about M390. If you're expecting me to say
it's got the best edge retention ever,
I'm not, actually. M390 really shines in a different category, actually. M390 scores a 9 on Laren Thomas's knife rating sheet. On his knife rating scale, the corrosion resistance is a 9, whereas the edge retention, which is what a lot of people have come to clamor about, is only marginally better than S30V. Not to say that S30V has bad edge retention or that M390 has bad edge retention. Neither of those steels have bad edge retention, okay? But that's not where this knife shines the most. It shines the most in corrosion resistance, which means that if you live in a humid area or a wet environment, you don't have to worry about this corroding or rusting. It's very corrosion resistant. You mix that in with some pretty decent edge retention, which is what I'm going to say. It's not the best edge retention, but it's decent. And you have yourself a knife that can withstand a lot, that'll last a long time, that'll stand the test of time. And that's absolutely phenomenal in my opinion. We'll do a quick comparison. Let's go ahead and put it up against something. Let's do the CJRB Echo. It's a bit longer than the Echo. What about up against the CJRB Pyrite? Yeah. So that should give you a pretty good idea. It's a decently sized knife. Profile in the pocket, it's actually pretty close to the Pyrite in thickness, but it's kind of hard to do that comparison because of the swells. And we're going back to the fact that I'm really impressed with how they achieved this design. I don't know how you could do it without CAD software. That's awesome. It feels great ergonomically. It looks good. It functions well. It's made out of good materials. I do think that everyone that's really interested in knife design should own an integral knife because they're so cool. The engineering prowess involved with designing and then actually producing this piece is impressive. And that's from no matter where it comes from, okay? It doesn't matter if it's we or whoever. Coming out with an integral knife is difficult, and they nailed it. This knife is so cool. And when DNK Knives reached out and they said, give it away, sell it, whatever, I'm kind of leaning towards the whatever part. This knife will eventually make its way back into circulation, but I'm not necessarily ready to let it go. I think this is one that I'm going to keep for a while. So thank you to DNK Knives for sending this my way. And it might just be that on a rainy day, I put this back into circulation. But I definitely appreciate them sending this to me, not only so that I could add it to my collection for now, but also so I'd have the opportunity to check out a knife that I might not have otherwise had the opportunity to show to you. And that means a lot. So DNK Knives, if you're watching, thank you. It means a lot, and I definitely appreciate it. And to the rest of you guys, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Do you like trailing point knives? Do you have one of these? If not, are you going to snag one of the few that's left out there on the market? Let me know. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, let me know. I'm happy to work on my craft. And if you want to see more knife content, there's definitely more coming. Make sure you hit subscribe. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.